Welcome back. You're watching the interview on Indonesia Highlights. Now, in your article, David, for the Jakarta Group recently titled Understanding Haze, more research is needed to fill in or address the gaps in knowledge in how to deal with the haze. And recently in January, there was a workshop held involving stakeholders. Can you explain a little bit about this workshop to address specifically on the haze issue?
Yes, so we had this workshop on the 29th of January of this year, where CIFOR invited government officials from Indonesia as well as from other countries involved, NGOs, private sector and researchers. And the idea was to get all these people together to talk about the problem and to try to identify the solutions as well. And so one of the main things that came out of the workshop is the fact that there's perhaps the problem is a problem of governance. And so we discussed the problem and we tried to identify some questions that would need to be addressed by research in order to inform decision makers and policy makers as to what the best approach is to take to stop the problem of fire and haze on peatlands.
When you mention government, one of the findings in the workshop is that there's actually existing regulations from the government in Indonesia itself. Now, where do you think, where's the fallout here in the implementation that it could not help to mitigate the recent haze that covered Riau?
That's right. There are a number of regulations at the national and provincial and district levels, amongst which a national moratorium on new plantations in peatlands. Therefore, the question is, why do these regulations? Why can't these regulations stop the fires that we're seeing nowadays? We think that, so what came out of the workshop is the fact that perhaps one of the problems is the lack of coordination amongst various government bodies, from central to provincial to district level, all the way down to the village level. Conflicting regulations as well as confusion over who owns what. And overlap, which leads to overlapping claims over land ownership. Sometimes the land is owned by the central government, like Ministry of Forestry, but the provincial government sees things differently. People at the village and district level also see things differently. This all leads to confusion, but also conflicts. We've seen cases where there's been conflicts between communities and private sector in concessions. I'm thinking of in pulp and paper concessions, for example. And research is really needed to understand whether these conflicts and this lack of coordination and confusion over who controls what in terms of land ownership, whether they are a big part of the problem or a minor part of the problem.
Very quickly now, what do you think is the immediate step the government should be focusing on at the moment for a short-term approach or effort to mitigate fires, future fires?
We think that, in terms of immediate actions, there's been talk of firefighting capacities, which is obviously an important step when the fire is happening right now. Now, I think that the fires have stopped, so what we need to do is to start working together. We need to start talking to each other. We need to start to coordinate better. And our role here at CIFOR is really to try to do the research to be able to make this happen.
Speaking of coordinating, the Forest Asia Summit is coming up in May, 5th and 6th, 2014. Before we close up the session, we're running out of time. Can you explain a little bit about the upcoming summit, who will be involved, and what are the main focus of the summit?
At the summit will be, so CIFOR is inviting over 1,000 people to come at the summit to talk about forests in Asia, Indonesia being a big chunk of it. And we're inviting people from various governments, from private sector. We hope that the President of Indonesia will come. And we'll be talking about forests and their sustainable use, and whether we can keep these forests, but at the same time continue to expand agriculture. So the idea is to really conserve forests at the same time as promoting sustainable development.
All right, David, unfortunately our time is very short, but thank you very much. We look forward to speaking to you soon. Good luck for the summit.
Thank you very much.
I have a feeling we'll be seeing you very soon.
Thank
you very much. That was the interview with David Gaveau, scientist, landscape ecologist from the Center for International Forestry Research. Florence, Armein for Indonesia Highlights.